Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, I wanted to do kind of a comparison between the original version of World at War, both from Lock and Load. This was the original version of World at War, which was designed by Mark H. Walker back when he was running and owned Lock and Load. And then this is the new version that came out a few years ago. And the reason I have this now is because I backed the upcoming World at War 85 Blood and Fury, which is the second big game, which actually also maps, like this one, Storming the Gap maps pretty much to Eisenbach Gap in terms of the setting, more so than mostly the setting, let's just put it that way. And we'll get into the differences here, which is the purpose of doing this video, is to say this is the original, right? This was the first World at War game, and it was followed by several other, expansions and additional games and so on. This was the first of the World at War 85 kind of relaunched game, redesigned. Mark Walker designed this one. Keith Tracton redesigned and designed this one. And so there are similarities, of course, but there are also differences. And so I wanted to kind of give you guys a look at what might be the same and different. And I'll do the same with Blood and Bridges from World at War, which I also have, and Blood and Fury from World at War 85 when I get it. There's been some delays in production. I'm not going to hold Lock and Load's feet to the fire over that. I understand things happen. Some other people are not quite as forgiving as I am, I guess. So let's take a look first at the original. So this is Eisenbach Gap. This is World at War minus the 85, but this was the original version, and then we'll take a look at Storming the Gap after that. Okay, so one disclaimer, this is an older game. It is not new, so it did not have shrink wrap on it. I did pull the shrink wrap off of the Storming the Gap, which I received not that long ago with some of my other Kickstarter stuff, which I may show, like the Solitaire module, which also works for Nations at War. So that covers me in two different games that I have, as well as the playmat and the novel that was written by Brad Smith. So let me turn this around. Apparently it was upside down. So these are the counters. We'll look at those in a moment. As I said, this is not a new game, and I actually bought it secondhand, but we do have the rules of play, so we'll start there. I have this gamer's guide too, which was an additional purchase that just happened to be included in that when I bought it. So you're going to see here that this rule book is relatively short, I guess. The rule overhead for this system is not all that heavy, particularly in its original form here. The rules run basically 10 pages. And then there are some stuff about the scenarios and order of battle things on the last page or so that you can design your own scenarios. And looking at this, if you've played Nations at War, or of course the new World at War 85, you're gonna see things that are very similar between the two games. Looking at the units here, for example, so these are our counters, right? So you have at the top, you have your AP firepower. In the middle here, the big 4, it's a little hard to see because this is black and white, but our range is 10 and our to hit number is a 4. So that's generally you roll the number of dice for your firepower, and the to hit number is the number that those dice need to be for it to be a hit. It's a very clean system. Then over here we have the armor value, which is basically the kind of the opposite. You have a value here for the armor itself, and then a save number. That is the number you need to roll to basically mitigate against a hit. Then we have at the bottom, you have your HE firepower, works the same as the AP firepower, but it is for obviously soft targets, infantry. The middle number here is your movement factor. And then we have an assault factor and a to hit range or a to hit roll for assault. You have the line in some of these. This obviously is a Bradley. The line signifies that it does not have extended range. Some units do. That this one is also a recon unit we see here. And the line down here indicates that it is capable of moving fire. So everything is kind of contained on the counter, and there's a lot on the counter, but once you understand the layout, it all makes sense. There are helicopters in the game, as you might expect. We have infantry units as well. Let's see. Then you have HQ units, which are important for activation, because you have activation chits rather, that will activate your units. It's a kind of a chit pull activation system. Again, if you've played Nations at War or World at War 85, it's very, very similar. And then different things for your support units and so on and so forth. You've got mortars here, stacking, how formations work, your morale, various markers, and then we have setting up the game, etc., etc. I'm not going to go too much into the rules because the rules, while they have been different, our gamer's guide is here as well. And I won't get into that, although that is a pretty cool thing. So here we have our player aid cards. There are two. It is a two-player game, although it is eminently soloable. And this is one side, and this is the other side. So as you can see, we've got our terrain effects chart here, and then this has various information about the counters, like we just went over, plus our moving fire table, rather, and our helicopter line of sight table. Some people didn't like the kind of pseudo Cyrillic font that was used in this game. It doesn't really bother me, although it does look a little strange. And so then we have the map. So here is the map. It is, I think it's 22 by 11. And so here is, actually, it's got to be bigger than that. 22 by 17. That's what it is. Right? So up here you have terrain key, basically the title of the game, turn track, and then you have the map. So this map is used in the 6 scenarios that come with the game, which I didn't show, and I should have, because that is a point of difference as well, is the scenarios. The titular Eisenbach is right here, with a river running through it. And you've got your various types. You have city hexes, of course, and woods and hills and, rough terrain, and then cultivated, farmland, basically, in various areas, and roads, of course. So very clean and simple. This art was done by Olivier Renaud. And so that is the map, and there's only the one map. And as I said, it is a little small. And so this game was released back in, I think it's on here. Maybe it's not. Well, I'll look it up, and I will post it on the, I'll put it in the, I'll put it up on a graphic. I'm trying to open the counters. I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. So I wanted to look at the counters a little bit. So these are partially punched. So let's see, we've got, here we have a Cobra helicopter and the Bravo headquarters. So you can kind of see what those look like. They are small. The print is small as well. So they're a little harder to read. I mean, if you're, like I am, if you're a fan of, say, Flying Pig Games, which of course is Mark H. Walker's current company, they have big, thick, beautiful counters, and the hex maps are large with big hexes. This is more old school. These are small counters. The hexes are smaller than what you see in, say, modern games. So now let's take a look at Storming the Gap, which is the new version. And as you can see, the box is much larger and thicker. It's a 3-inch box as opposed to a 2-inch box. Module, rules, and scenarios. All right. We also have the core rules, so let's look at that. So here's the core rules. You can tell they're much beefier than the original rules, right? So when we say redesigned, that's just not, that's not a line of BS. This is actually significantly fleshed out. You can see you've got introduction and how to use the manual, and then just a lot of content here. This book runs over 100 pages in total. The The rules look like they weigh in around 90, 95 pages or so, including the battle generator. And you can see there's lots of notes and images. It's in color. It's bound. It's very nice. I mean, you can see here on the back, Keith Tracton is the designer for this. The complexity is mid-range. Now, just because the rule book is extremely long does not mean that this is an overly complex game. I've played Nations at War. It's basically the same system, and yeah. So this is the Core Rules 2.0. There is a lot in this book. As I said, I'm not going to really go through it. This is more just a look at a comparison here, and then this is the scenarios. So in the first game, we had 6 scenarios. This one weighs in at 21 scenarios. And I think the total length of all the scenarios in the original were something like, there were multiple on a page, put it that way, because the setups were very simple. This one, you get a little bit more detail. So if we look at this first scenario, Storming the Gap, shows you the map. It shows, and I mean, it's just bigger and laid out a little bit more. The text in the original rulebook's kind of small. The text here is nice and big. It's easy to read. It's not completely covering the page in a wall of text. Then you have scenario 2. We've got like an opening story, basically, an introduction. They've got pictures of the various units that you're going to use in there. And then you have setups. Another difference with these two games is you get cards for activation as well. So a lot of different scenarios here. 21 scenarios, all of them with detailed setup. Here's a good example where you have a map for a night scenario, it looks like. Just a lot here, a lot. So that's something. So if you're wondering, again, the thrust of this is it worth it if you have the original to shell out to get the new one? I would say it is. Here's a map for an example. Now, it doesn't lay particularly flat, but you can slap some plexi on there and take care of that, I'm sure. So here you have kind of the new look. That's upside down. Let's flip it over here. So this is the new look map. So you get a good look at how this looks. We still have the same kind of terrain, right? You've got cultivated fields here. You've got a town. You got roads. We got water. You've got some elevation and so on and so forth. So pretty straightforward. And there are multiple maps with this as well. So this is one. And then we have 2, 3. There's a winter version and a summer version. So this is map 45. And you can see that one is winter and one is summer, I guess. And you can see that they're actually the same. Like the hill here is here. And you can see the river twisting through and the towns and everything and the roads, of course. So we have 2 versions of this map. We have map 2 here. This is map 1, map 2. These are map 45. We have 2 versions of map 3. We have the winter version of map 2 and the winter version of map 1. So basically you have 3 maps in 2 versions and then a 4th map in 2 versions as well with map 45. And we've got a bunch of player aids here as well. There's a lot of stuff in this box, let's put it that way. So this is why it's more complex. There's more to it, I guess, would be one way of putting it. So we've got a weather change table. We have the battle generator. We have direct fire modifiers, sequence of play, every die roll in the series. That's pretty cool. And these are all single-sided. This one is not. This is not single-sided. And we have holding boxes, always handy. We have battlefield events table, and on the other side, battlefield friction table. Missile ammo and special ability reference, move and fire summary chart, indirect fire. You have formation card inventory on two sides here. Here we have the formation deck and discards, artillery tracks, turn record, weather track, squall box, NATO and Allies offboard artillery. And we have the East German National Unit Table, the West German National Unit Chart, another East German National Unit Table, another West German one here, and we have terrain effects chart, as you can see. And then we have the Soviets unit table. I'm assuming, yeah, two-sided. We have plenty. Line of sight examples. So you have this out in a card that you can refer to. If you have a giant table, probably good for this game. Then we have the Americans, their unit table, two-sided as well. More terrain effects chart. Probably for the other player would be my guess. Another Soviet and another United States. So two copies of all that stuff, basically. And then the unit and card reference. So you have marker references on this side, and you have unit and card reference on the other side. So that is a lot. As you can see here, that is a pretty thick stack of stuff. Then we have counter sheets. So that's there are 7 of these. That is a lot of counters. So if we come up here and take a look, you can see stuff is pretty much laid out the same as it was on the other one. We have our M1 Abrams here with the same kind of setup with movement and AP and HE firepower, etc. These are obviously American units. You've got M113s, you've got infantry squads, all kinds of stuff down here. The improved tow vehicle, the ITV, some Bradleys, etc. As I said, there are 7 of these. I'm not probably going to go through all of them. Let's look at some Soviet units. Going through here, just looking. So here we have some T-72s right there. You can see some BMPs, infantry, more T-72s. The color bands indicate their formation, which in the previous version was printed on the counter itself. That's something that's true in Nations at War as well. Then we have our dice. There is a lot of dice that get rolled in this game. Then we have the cards, and there are 2 thick sets of cards here. And this is what a formation card looks like. And I'm not really going to go into this too much in depth. I just wanted to kind of show the 2 games' components mostly. When I do a playthrough, which I will, we'll see all of this stuff, and I'll kind of go through it a little bit more. I didn't want to do anything too lengthy here to start things off. So that is World at War 85, Storming the Gap. So we'll put our stuff back in the box here. There is, as I said, quite a lot of it. And there's Storming the Gap and the original Eisenbach Gap. So I probably will play this too at some point, and then I could have an even better comparison. The rules obviously in this are much shorter. There's a lot less to it. They've deluxified the system quite a bit for the World at War 85 series. So that's the main difference. You've seen the components, and we talked a little bit about other stuff, but that is the comparison here for these two. That's going to do it for now. I will have more on this game, and when Blood and Bridges shows up, I will also do something with that. I also have the expansion pack for this. We'll talk about that at a later date as well as the Solitaire Assistant and the book and the play mat and all that stuff. So that's coming up down the road. So as always, thank you for watching. Please feel free to make comments, ask questions. Please consider liking, sharing. If you're not a subscriber, please think about it. That would be awesome and much appreciated. But even if you don't, hopefully you'll come back and watch something else in the future. So for now, that's going to do it. I'm Joe. This is the Hexed Encounter channel. And until next time, as always, happy gaming.